Hey everyone, welcome to our first episode of the Dental Assistant Nerds podcast. Thank you for listening. This is one of your hosts, Amanda, and we also have
This is John. Thank you very much. And this is the first episode of season three.
season three is upon us. It's always fun to come up with new topics, and hopefully this year we're going to get some guests. We've talked to some people that are willing to get on our podcast coming up here in 2025. So if you have some ideas or want to be a guest as well, then we'll give you that contact information at the end of this podcast. So continue listening, but we're excited to get this year kicked off. And as we're into January 2025, new year comes, new changes, new growth, new opportunities, jumping into new journeys. So we're kind of throwing out the what is our New Year's resolutions, not necessarily focusing on the resolutions of 2025, but what is your overall goals, or what are the changes we are going to make maybe in 2025 that have not maybe aligned with our life in the last year, two, or five. So, what do you think, John?
I think that human beings are procrastinators to begin with. It's our
Yes.
nature. I think about what I said last year and the year before, and it's like, I got on that scale today and I was not happy. Not happy at all. And I was like, how did it get to this point? I think that definitely going into 2025, you have to write down. You got to get it to where you can see it, make yourself accountable, and say, "This is my goal." And one thing Amanda and I always talk about is whether it's professional, personal. Do you hate your job? Do you maybe hate the way that a certain pair of pants fit? You got a little muffin top going on. You know, Whatever it is, it's definitely good to come up with a plan because that's really your only way of attack is coming up with a plan. Some people we talk to, maybe they drive an hour and they're like, I need to find something closer. But one thing that when we talk to people that seems to be the most it's convenience. It's like, well, I don't want to leave this job because I'm familiar with it. I'm convenient. I talked to an assistant a couple weeks ago and it was like, oh, I switched jobs and I just don't like it. Everything's different. We're using different products. And I said, okay, well, you obviously changed the job for a reason, right? Because
Yeah.
because we actually thought about contemplating about going back. And I said, well, let's think about this. Let's talk about it. So after a little bit of back and forth for a couple minutes, she was like, you're right. You're right. I'm going to save this message as a reminder because I did change jobs for a reason. So I actually checked in with her about a week or two ago, and she's like, things are a lot better, and I'm in the right headspace, and change is scary. It is.
It is. It's very intimidating. And I read something along the lines, and we've all read it, but who's in the autopilot mode? We're just going along and trucking along with life, and it just, Groundhog Day becomes part of our everyday nature of just wake up, do this is my routine, that this is my schedule, driving the same route to work, doing the same things, eating the same things, whether it's good or bad. And we just become monotonous. And believe me, I'm sure John as well, but I have been there as well, that and it also leads to burnout of just, oh my gosh, there has to be more than just this. I don't know if any of you have ever felt that way, but I definitely can think back around 2018 of thinking that way of I was in a position at a dental assistant office for an extended period of time, not thrilled of where I was, definitely not seeing any growth opportunity, whether it was in my dental assistant world, in the office that I was at was very small. There was no growth. What I was where I was going to be if I stayed there for the next 10, 15, 20, or 30 years. So I think another good question is, why do you want to do what you want to do? What are those changes that you want to make in 2025? Uh, I agree. I am very much a sweet tooth eater, and I hit those cookies hard around Christmas time this year. I loved it. I love the apricot. I love the nut rolls. I love the tradition. Uh, my morning coffee with rum chata, the alcohol, which I wasn't going anywhere for the day. So just the sweetness and the peppermint, just all of it. I loved it all in the fireplace with a Hallmark Christmas movie. So we got to get back to reality. We have to get back to our goals of what do we want to do? What do we want to be? I know John and I last year, we both talked about a vision board. I personally have still not followed through with doing that, but I do think that a vision board or something on a very small scale can help just keep us on our platform of where do we want to go, why do we want to be, and at the end of 2025, if we look back, did we accomplish a portion or start to get in the right direction of where we want to go? Um, so this can pertain, as we already said, look at the dental world. Our dental world has changed tremendously in the last couple of years, right? If you're not part of different social media groups and dental groups across the country, it's a crazy world out there in dentistry right now, to say the least, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean,
it's
it is.
there's there's a lot of I think there's a lot of good changes that are happening in dentistry. But I do think those good changes in our world when it comes to us as being dental assistants and the world of dental hygienists, that let's say the least, it has ruffled a lot of feathers and not always the most positive way for all parties involved. But we have to take the good and the bad, and we have to take those changes and make those changes go in the direction to is better going to fit us, and fight for, I guess, to a certain extent, what you believe in or where you want to go. So what do you there's a lot of hot topics in the sense of the dental world. What do you think, John?
I think that when we talk to most people, typically they love dentistry. From there, it's, maybe you work in a practice. We see some dentists only hire one dental assistant. They're keeping the practice small. There is definitely no room for growth, you know. And if you're a person that you're hungry, you're thriving on something, it's probably not the place for you, which goes back to convenience. Like maybe you stay there because, you can drop your daughter off on the way to the office. You know, I think you have to look at everything overall and see what's feasible. Um, we've all been there where we're in a place. I mean, I've stayed at an office before for 10 years because I was complacent. It was 3 miles from home. The office like changed hours and I hated it, but I was still like, hey, it's 3 miles from home. Like in the back of my mind, that's all I kept saying. There was no room for growth. I was the only assistant.
Yeah.
The doctor was not very good at including me in CE. So, I didn't really learn anything. I didn't take any initiative. And, I'd hate to say it, but just being around that, like it almost, um, it kind of was like a petri dish. It was like I wasn't inspired and I just kind of showed up to work and it festered. Honestly, it just festered to the point where it's like he was extending appointments because he wanted more time to do other stuff other than dentistry. And it got to the point where I was extending appointments because I'm like, well, I got to wait on him. So I'm tired of running behind. So now I'm adding, 10, 15 minutes on every appointment. And it's just a bad situation. But now I feel like I'm hungry every day. And I wish I had this mindset. Man, that was a long time ago. That was 2007.
I know
2007.
sometimes it's crazy to think back of like all the years that we have involved and invested in our personal careers in dentistry. But I know that John and I are very honest with each other. And of course, we talk every day in our growth with our businesses. But on how much our mindset has completely evolved and then changed in the last 3 years, 4 years. It's not even it's a side of myself 3 or 4 years ago that I almost don't even recognize anymore. And I can't relate to certain people that are still in my life, or that you will meet new people and I immediately can say, nope, not not a seat at my table. Not in the sense that I mean for it to be rude by any means, because I feel everybody, we would not be where we are today if we didn't have people that we felt were new seats at our table, I guess, of leadership and goals and orientation of life and outlook. And I feel like for generations, that generations had this mindset, and I came from this generation of mindset of, well, is when I was a kid and going to, oh, you're going to college and then you get a career and you get married and you make X amount of number. I'll never forget in high school for some reason, my number was $45,000. If I made $45,000 and I had a husband that made $45,000, we would be set for life and live this lavish, comfortable life. And I came from a very small hometown, no stoplight, one stop sign, maybe two, and just, you know, a a a country Pennsylvania town that you worked, you retired at 65, you sat on your porch drinking coffee, sweet tea, and you died a few years later. Honestly, like that's what like I think, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like how much, involvement of, oh my goodness, there is so much more than also just working till you die. And as we know, we need that financial income, but I guess that statement of, if you enjoy what you do, it'll never feel like work. The older I get, the maybe it does hold more truth, that you have to go to work, you have to have a career. Uh, but I mean, I do fully agree that if you're not enjoying what you're doing or you're not enjoying where your practice is right now in your growth, then maybe this is your year of evolvement of, those growth opportunities in 2025.
Yeah, I think that, we're in that age bracket of, what our parents said, but unfortunately, this is one of those things that I feel like the chain has never been broken because maybe somebody's parents weren't honest enough with you. My grandparents, my grandfather was, um, worked on the railroad in the Korean War, and it's almost like he was self-employed, worked construction, handed the business over. My father worked construction, and one thing that's never really talked about is pensions in this country stopped around in the 70s. It was hey, you work for a company for 30 years and
Yeah.
you know exactly what you're going to get upon retirement, and then you retire. And pensions are a thing of the past. So, whenever you talk about, hey, get a job, go to college, get a job, work there for, all those years, then retire at 65, then just kind of enjoy the rest of your life. Those aren't the days anymore. And when you talk
No.
about that number of 45,000, and I remember being asked that in school, and I want to say I didn't necessarily think salary wise, but I remember thinking, oh, $20 an hour, would be splendid, right? Because at the time,
Yeah.
minimum wage was 4.25. So I
Yeah.
remember thinking, oh, if I made 20 an hour, I'd probably be doing pretty well. So you take away that factor of, okay, pensions are gone. Now you have a more realistic idea of how much an hourly wage that you need to live is, and it bumps you up. Like I see assistants in the groups complain all the time about this job isn't a livable wage, and I can't believe we need a second job. And honestly, outside of dental assisting, there's a lot of people making $20 to $30 an hour that still have to have a second job or even a
Oh,
third job.
yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so I don't think you can necessarily attack dental,
No.
but you also have to be motivated and, level up and bring more things to the table, because you can't work in a job Monday through Thursday for 32 hours a week and think, oh, okay, well, all my bills should be paid, if you're making X amount. So that's something that you want to take into consideration, that if you're working 32 and the rest of the population's working 40, Why is it that you should get something that, someone working 40 gets? Like you're losing 8 hours a week. And this is a pro and con, obviously, of this field is it's great to work 4 days a week, but don't complain about the fact you're not making enough money because you're working 4 days a week.
Yeah, you have to be willing to, I know myself, I haven't worked full time 5 days a week at a dental practice for years and financially make less money clearly. But the value of that for me right now in the period of my life is that I'm home more with my kids. So, you have to think of that as your goals as well of whatever you want to achieve in 2025. Of course, dental related, like you said, I drive an hour and back and forth to work. 2 hours in a car for me is a no bueno. I do not think so. I even with temping, it really takes everything I have to drive that hour and 15 minutes, even twice a month. Um, Due to the factor of just my kids and the schedule and homework and after school activities and things like that. So there's no doubt that early on in my career, 20 years ago, that I would have worked an hour away from home, an hour and a half away from home, and I didn't think anything of it. I would have worked 40, 50 hours a week. I waitressed as a waitress at a local pub also on the weekends. This is also prior to me having young kids, that you have to change what is accordance to your alignment of life. And I think that is a great way of determining what your goals or your platform of 2025 resolutions, if that's what you want to call it, that what aligns with you this year that changed last year and make those changes accordingly. So um, in the health and fitness world, I think that's, as we all know, that's the number one goal in the sense of resolutions. And, you know, goodness, I know that John and I love personal quotes and or quotes of, famous people or whatever, but there's definitely a quote and I'll mutilate it, but are your actions aligning with your goals? Mine probably are not, if I had to be honest. My husband knows it because he's a nutrition coach. And yet again, I am personally hard to, I don't, we all know what we need to do. We need to eat less sugar, drink more water, exercise more, walk more, things like that. So making those small changes and those small steps every day, leading to every week, leading to every month, will definitely overall make us better and better. So, uh, let's not get into the rut of sticking with this negative mindset if you're in the dental practice. So we all know how that goes. Well, so and so doesn't do it, and now the hygienist doesn't do it, and now my doctor doesn't care. So now all of a sudden now Amanda also is like, I know I could do better, but I'm okay with not just because my surrounding of people also is okay with being average or below average as well. So if you have that feeling of, I know that I'm capable of more and I want more in my life and I want more fulfillment, then this is your journey of 2025 to take those steps to get there.
Yeah, I think, you know, what I was getting back to earlier is a lot of people in this field love dentistry, but maybe they're stuck because they can't really elevate in their particular practice. So maybe it's time to say, I have all this knowledge. Maybe I can look into other positions. Being a dental assistant, you can elevate to, treatment plan coordinator, office manager, lab technician. One thing we try and encourage our students on is, and I'm going to say something very scary right now because a lot of people are afraid of this, but public speaking, people are deathly afraid of it. And if you can be a person to get some type of certification or credentialing in, teaching CE, or, Amanda does CPR certification, infection control. There's so many things that you can get your certifications on. Now you can go into those offices and help keep them up to date. And it's something that typically dental assistants don't necessarily want to take on or think to take on. And it's definitely something that's out there for the taking because a lot of times it's companies that aren't in dentistry who are teaching that stuff. And that's a prime opportunity for you to kind of step outside that box, but also start working on yourself and at the same time building a business.
Yeah, as we know, there's so much out there for dental hygienists. There's so much out there for dental, just dentist as well, that the dental assistant market and the dental assistant growth of how we can help each other is really an untapped market. So that is a great idea in the sense of what can you do to help? What can you do to help your local community? You know, it does not have to be nationwide. You do not have to go to these cross the country CE courses, which are lavish and nice, but there is probably plenty of work that you can reach out to your local community and do something for your dental community. Um, so those ideas are endless on our end, of course, of how we can on how we can do that. So today is January 6th. It's a snow day here in Pennsylvania, with kids not in school due to the I can look out the window right now and it looks like a snow globe here. But it's your day, a couple days into 2025. The holidays season is over, almost at least. And so write down those goals. Write down if you were at the end of this year, what would you like to look back on and see that you accomplished, at least the steps that you were taking to get there? Personal, career, maybe you want to start a business, which we can maybe do a podcast about that in the future here. So, what are those steps that you can start taking tomorrow? It's not a Monday, it's not a January 1st, good old January 7th, which is a Tuesday morning. What can you do starting today or tomorrow that is going to lead you to that journey of growth and opportunity? So, we would love to hear what those ideas are, what your goals are, expectations. So, please share those in the comments or send us an email.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the continued support. Of course, you can find us, Dental Assistant Nerds Podcast and Cornerstone Dental Assistant Academy on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and of course, TikTok for who knows how long. Uh,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
if you're looking for maybe you have a business, you're looking for some advertising opportunities, feel free to reach out to us as well. You can email us at cornerstonedainstructors@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to stand tall, stand out, be confident in that knowledge that you know, and bring value to that practice that you're in as a dental assistant. Continue to keep your mind open and continue learning new things. Listen to our next podcast, our episode of number 2 of our season 3. Thank you for listening.